Ever jump into a race feeling totally unprepared? Today I'm breaking down how to properly prepare for any iRacing event, whether it's an official race or a league round, so you can show up confident and ready to compete. If you find this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more iRacing content here on 5 Racing. Okay, so let's get into it then. For this example of how I would prepare for a race, I am going to be preparing for a Porsche Cup race at Road Atlanta. So I've got a league race there next weekend, and the officials are also there next week. So I'm going to show you how to prepare for both, because that's what I'm going to be doing this week. I'm going to be doing both. So we're in the officials page here for the Porsche Cup Open, and as you can see, it's on Alton Park this week. But just to give you an idea of the information that you can see in here, you've got the track layout here of the track that you're on and the track map. You can see if you need to learn the layout of the track at all. And we've got the weather forecast over here, which we can see there's a chance of rain here for Alton Park this week, but I don't think that's going to be an issue at Road Atlanta next week, luckily. We've got some more information down here, like the race format, the event rules. As you can see, difficulty settings, start procedures and cautions and restarts. But for us, preparing for Road Atlanta, you've popped to the schedule tab here. We can see that the weather is going to be sunny, as we said, and yeah, standard official length, which we know anyway, but if you need to know that, it is in here, which is 17 laps for Porsche Cup, which is usually around 25 minutes or so. But with regards to league racing, it's a bit different. It will depend on your league, but for this league, we have a nice rule book that the guys have prepared. So I'm going to be preparing for a 45-minute race, so that is a different length to the officials, so we're going to have to think about adding more fuel there. But there's still no pit stop, no mandatory pit stop required, which we can see here. So basically, we're just preparing for a 45-minute race in the league with no pit stop, so that's nice and straightforward. So we're going to jump into the sim now, and I'm going to show you how to prepare, or how to begin to prepare in the sim for an official and for this league race as an example. So this is very important, so we can practice in the conditions that we're actually going to face in the races that we're going to do and that we're preparing for. We can actually open a test drive session that has the exact conditions. Especially this is good for practicing ahead in officials if the practice servers aren't up yet. So I'm on the week before Road Atlanta now, as you can see here. So to open a test session with the actual conditions, we can go on the schedule tab and we can click this Go Racing tab here, and you can click test drive, and that is going to open up here the option to open a test session with the conditions that are going to be in the servers for those officials next week. And you can also do this in leagues. So if you go back to the leagues tab on the left here, and the Danny Lee Porsche Cup is the one I'm preparing for, so I'm going to open that and go to sessions, and you can see here the guys have created all the sessions for the season, and you can do the same thing. So you can go Road Atlanta here, view session, and we can test drive that session. And we can run a test drive session with the same conditions that the guys have set up for the league race. So this is a great way to practice in the conditions that you're actually going to face when you're racing, which is exactly what we want to do. So now let's jump into the sim, and we'll start going over some of the techniques that we can actually practice in the car to get prepared for our races. Okay then, so here we are in the sim. The first thing that we're going to do is put the race setup on the car. So I usually use Apex Racing Academy setups in Porsche Cup, but I'm not going to show them on here today because I don't want to get in trouble for sharing anyone's setups or anything. So I'm going to use the fixed setup for this example. So we can find that in here. So I'm going to load the Road Atlanta. There it is, race setup, and then you've got the quali setup below it there as well. But we're going to put the race setup on the car, and I've just been out. As you can see here, this is the iOverlay fuel calculator down here, bottom left. I've just been out and done 5 laps on this fixed setup, so I can get some fuel figures basically. So my average usage is around 2.2 a lap. That's an average of 5 laps there, you can see. So we want to, obviously with the officials, the fixed, you don't have to worry about the fuel because the fixed setup will have enough fuel. And then any setups you get from setup shops for open, they should have enough fuel as well. But just check the fuel figures compared to the fixed, and obviously check with your fuel figures as well, just to make sure that they're not going to be a bit short, because they're obviously made by someone else who might have a different fuel usage per lap to you, so you might find yourself short, and the last thing you want to do is run out of fuel. So always better to take a little bit extra. So with the fuel figures that we've got here, so we're right for officials, but for our league race of 45 minutes, we're going to have to work out how much fuel we need. So this is the fuel calculator that I use. I'll put the link for this in the description. So we've got a 45-minute race, and the average lap time somewhere around 120, I think, here. But what I usually do is just check, because this is going to be the leader's pace. They're going to be the ones that dictate how long the race goes for. So it's coming up with 34 laps there, but I'm just going to check if they were to do 119s, it would be 35. So yeah, you maybe, if you do this and you go a second either side and the total amount of laps is the same, then you don't have to worry about it. But with this, so like if I was to do 119.5, it would still be 34. So you've got to ask yourself, are they going to be doing low 19s regularly through the race? Yeah, just to try and work out your total laps. So we'll do it for 35 to be safe, because that comes up. Yeah, so we'll do it for 35 for now. So our fuel per lap, as we said, was 2.2. So it's given us 77. So even though this is accurate, this fuel calculator, I usually add a couple of litres extra just to be safe, because obviously running out of fuel at the end of the race is, yeah, really not great. So I'd rather take a couple of litres extra and know that I'm going to make it to the end. And not have to fuel save really as well, in a sprint race kind of thing, to be honest. So, yep, 77 litres, so we could put 79 in and we'll definitely have enough. So we'll jump back to the sim and we'll dial it up. And as you can see, that now means that the setup doesn't pass tech. So if I click apply, it's failed because the front ride height's too low. So what we want to do is put the ride height back up to equal what it was before we made the change. So if we go back to the original fixed setup, it was 72.1 on the front and 116.1 on the back. The rear probably won't change, but keep an eye on it because the rake of the car is important for various reasons. We're not going to go deep into setup today, but this is just how I'm going to set up the car for practice here. So 72.1, so we're going up to 79 litres, click apply, and then we'll just raise the front on both corners until we get as close as we can. 72.2 is fine, and the rear ride height is the same. So that's going to be our base to work from for our 45-minute league race. So now we've got that sorted, the car's ready to go. Okay, so now we've got our car set up. There's a couple of things I would quickly do before I headed out on track. The first one would be to look at a Hotlap video, just to refresh myself if I haven't raced at Red Atlanta for a while, or if I needed to learn the track better, to have a look at what sort of lines I should be using, brake markers, for example, and just get more of a feel of what a good lap looks like, so that I don't go out practicing the wrong thing and developing bad habits straight away, basically. So as you can see here, I've just Googled on YouTube, just searched on YouTube, sorry, iRacing Porsche Cup Red Atlanta Hotlap, and we've got a few here from last season because Red Atlanta was on the last season on iRacing. So we've got one from Jaime here, which I'd probably just have a look at this one, to be honest, and just see, you know, the kind of the lines, the inputs, the brake markers, etc., just to give yourself an idea of what it should look like, so you're not practicing the wrong thing. And the next thing I would do, I use Garage 61, so you probably heard of this, which is a telemetry system software that you have on your PC, and it records your data and lap times. but it's very useful for getting an idea of what sort of lap times you should be aiming for to be competitive. So here I've selected Road Atlanta and the Porsche Cup car, but it's giving us it's giving us the fastest laps, but they're not necessarily relevant because these ones up the top here are on qualifying fuel, you could see, because the fuel load is low, and it also might not be on the same conditions as we're going to race in either. So one way we can make it a bit more relevant is by adding the filter date driven and current season, because things change with the iRacing physics and tyre model and stuff between seasons, so it's always good to be on the current season laps. So we'll load that up, and you can see here we've got some laps, again qualifying laps, but if we scroll down you can actually see my teammate Miles Hemming here, who has done a 120.4 on 28.3 litres of fuel. So that was most likely in a race or a race simulation. So that's a good sort of target to aim for. Miles is now actually 7k, so that's a good target to aim for me personally. But pick something that's maybe close to you. So if you're slightly lower iRating, you can maybe go down. You can see people's iRating here. So iRating is not always an indication of pace, but you can see they're on race fuel there. You can see the track temp. So that's a very high track temp actually. We're going to be in a lower track temp, so maybe something like this. This is a 2.1k driver here, Max Victor. I picked a name that I can't really say. But yeah, he was on a 19-degree track temp, about 19, 18-degree air temp there, which is pretty similar to what we're in now. He was on quali fuel there, but you get the idea. So try and pick something that is close to what you're going to be running to gauge an idea of what sort of lap times you should be hitting. So now we've done all that preparation, it's time to get out on track, and we want to run some race simulations. So we basically want to recreate exactly what we're going to be facing in our race. So for official, that's going to be about a 25-minute run, and for our league race that we talked about, it's a 45-minute race. So make sure that you've got your setup and your fuel load as it should be for that race, and just run a full race stint just to practice the track, get used to how the car feels with different fuel loads as they change throughout the race, and also how the tyres are going to drop off and change throughout that stint as well. So yeah, all of this is about trying to recreate exactly what we're going to be dealing with as a driver, and that then makes us well prepared for that when it comes around. So now we've completed our first race simulation. This would now be the time that you can adjust your setup of your car slightly. So if we jump back into the garage here, one of the main things that you would do initially, most of the fixed setups and the custom setups are pretty good out of the box, and you don't want to get too fixated on changing the setup to find pace rather than doing the practice, especially when you're kind of newer to the sim. Guys at the very top level are going to find, the extra 1/10 or 2/10 from setup, but the chances of, most of us finding that much time with just setup changes is you're probably better off putting the time into practice, to be honest, and preparation. But one of the fundamental things we can do is change the rake of the car. So if you're not familiar with that, it's basically the height of the rear of the car in relation to the front, so it's kind of like this, and the more that the rear is raised, the more the car will rotate, but the more unstable it will be, and the more the rear is lowered, it will be more stable, but then it's more prone to understeer. So after doing a full race stint, you should have a pretty good idea of how the car feels, and if you feel that it needs a bit more rotation, you can add a bit of rear ride height, and if you feel like it's a bit too loose and you want it to be a bit more stable, then you can lower the rear ride height slightly. But yeah, that's a good fundamental change to make to the setup. But like I said, you're better off probably just putting the time into practice at this point. So with regards to lap times, after you've done your first race simulation, if you see that your pace is off where you kind of want it to be after looking at some comparisons before, then we can use Garage 61 again. This is really useful. You can look at the telemetry compared with the comparison lap maybe that you were looking at. So if I go to my teammate Miles's lap here, this 120.4, I can click Analyze, and I'll create a new analysis. And this is going to give me all the telemetry for Miles's lap that was recorded, and I can compare that to my own lap. So if I go Configure and Add Laps, and then I should be here somewhere. Yep. So you can pick, so I can pick this lap here and tick the box and click apply. And then we'll do analyze selected laps. And then now I can see both laps telemetries overlaid. So if I go in on sector 1 here, you can start to look in a bit more detail at what you're doing differently to someone who's maybe going a bit quicker than you around the lap. So you can start to look at the different traces. So we're not going to go into loads of detail in this today, but it's a really useful tool to find a bit more time. And also you can revisit the Hotlap and study that a bit more. And again, compare. So it's all about comparison. It's like monkey see, monkey do. I heard a race driver say before, but that's is it a lot of the time. You're looking at the telemetry of people that are going quicker than you, or maybe they're on boards, and seeing what they're doing differently to you, and that's how you learn and find more pace yourself. So there's a few more things that we can practice. We can obviously do more race simulations. You can never do enough of those really, but qualifying simulations are also very important, because the car, when it's on light fuel and possibly has got cooler tyres, it's going to feel very different to when you're running these race simulations. So it's good to do quite a few quali simulations, just so that you know how the car feels in those conditions and you're prepared for that as well. Practice starts can also be pretty important, especially in like Porsche Cup for standing starts. You can chuck them into your kind of practice regime. Like if I'm going out to do a race simulation, for example, I can maybe do a practice start on the pit exit, and you can kind of do that all the time just to keep them dialed in and keep them fresh. Practicing the pit entry is also very important. You don't want to be doing that for the first time during a race. You need to get it right. Obviously not crash the car or hit anything, but also maximize the time you can gain in the pit stop. So make sure you practice your pit entry. Obviously for these races I'm preparing for, I'm not actually doing a pit stop, so I won't be practicing the pit entry too much, but it's worth still doing it a couple of times just in case you have an incident and you need to use the pits at any point. The final thing that I find really, really useful is to get in some officials. So this is the great thing about doing a league that follows officials, is that you have the official race service to practice racing in throughout the week before your league race. And that's super useful for learning where you can overtake, where you can defend without losing time, just being around other cars on the track. You don't really want your first time being around other cars to be in the race that you're practicing for. So yeah, if you can get some race experience, even if like leading up to the official week you do some races against AI, just to get a feel for having other cars around you and what it's like going offline in certain places and things like that you wouldn't do when you're practicing by yourself. Final couple of little tips for race day. Make sure that you warm up before the race. Don't jump in cold. Get about half an hour of practice in at least before the start of qualifying, just so you've got a feel for the car again. I like to, in about half an hour before the race, I like to do sort of 15 minutes running on the race setup, and then I'll switch to the quali setup and do maybe 1 or 2 quali sims before the start of quali, just so that I know how the car feels and I'm kind of ready with that. In addition to this, we all know the old saying, the race isn't won on the first corner. Keep it calm for the first lap at least. If you've got the pace to move forward in the race, you'll have plenty of time to do so. No need to be sending all of your moves on the first lap. Preparation doesn't guarantee a win, but it gives you the best shot at a clean competitive race. What's your go-to race prep routine? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear how you get ready to race. And as always, if you liked the video and you found it useful, please do drop a subscribe, and I'll be bringing more sim racing content to you very soon at 59 Racing. Thank you very much.